All right, today we're diving into some of the greatest operas ever written. And I promise you, this is not going to be some stuffy, old-fashioned lecture. We are talking about stories that are packed with more drama, passion, and honestly, more excitement than your favorite binge-worthy TV show.
So, do you think opera is just, a bunch of people standing around singing in a language you don't get? Well, get ready to have that idea completely flipped on its head. Because the reality, it is so much more thrilling.
I mean, for starters, one of the most famous operas out there ends with a vengeful ghost dragging our hero on a literal trip to hell. No joke.
Another one is just described as high-temperature music and drama, and that's exactly what it is. It's all about passion, betrayal, and revenge, all happening under the hot Spanish sun. And for others, the warning is just simple, steel yourself for the ending. So, a trip to hell, high-temperature drama, intense endings. Intrigued? Yeah, you should be. So let's dive into some of the most powerful stories ever set to music.
We're going to start in Italy, which is the birthplace of opera, with two absolute masters of emotion. These are the Italian Heartbreakers, where you'll find melodies you'll never forget and some truly gut-wrenching tragedies. Okay, so on one side, you've got Giuseppe Verdi. He was a genius at digging into these intense personal dramas that were always set against the backdrop of really rigid social rules. And on the other side, Giacomo Puccini. He was the undisputed king of passionate, soaring music that just makes you feel every single ounce of his character's joy and, let's be honest, usually their sorrow.
First up from Verdi, we have La Traviata. This is the classic story, right? A forbidden love affair that just smashes right into society's strict expectations. It's all about love and social conflict, and it features one of the most famous drinking songs in all of music, the Libiamo chorus. You've probably heard it.
Then there's Verdi's Rigoletto. This one is an incredibly intense personal drama where just one thing after another leads to an absolutely devastating tragedy. The music is just drenched in emotion, love, loyalty, and this profound sadness. Remember that warning to steel yourself for the ending? Yeah, this is that one.
Okay, now for Puccini, Madama Butterfly. It tells the absolutely heartbreaking story of a Japanese geisha who falls for an American naval officer who, of course, completely betrays her. Puccini's soaring melodies, especially for the soprano, just perfectly capture her passion and her pain. The advice for this one is pretty straightforward. Bring Kleenex.
And you just can't talk about Puccini without mentioning La Bohème. It's this incredibly moving story about young, poor lovers in Paris, and it has some of the most beautiful music ever written for the tenor voice. You might even recognize some of it, actually. It was used famously in the movie Moonstruck. I mean, you really can't do better than having Puccini score your picture.
All right, let's shift gears. We're moving from Italian tragedy to Austrian genius. We are now entering the world of Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, where things get clever, they get complicated, and sometimes they get a little bit spooky. First up, The Marriage of Figaro. This is a brilliant comic opera, where the clever servants are constantly outsmarting their bumbling aristocratic masters. The original story was actually so revolutionary it was censored, but Mozart turned it into an opera where the fast-paced, light music just perfectly matches all the chaos happening on stage.
But, Mozart had a dark side too. In Don Giovanni, he gives us this chilling portrait of the legendary Don Juan. It's a comical tragedy, so it's part hilarious, part deadly serious, and it all leads up to that unforgettable finale with the vengeful ghost and that trip to hell we talked about. It's just a masterpiece. And that sense of scale and ambition, that leads us perfectly into our next category.
Welcome to the Blockbusters. These are the operas that went for epic, massive scale, introduced totally new sounds, and in one case, completely changed the course of music history forever. We have to start with Verdi's Aida. This is opera on a gigantic scale. I'm talking ancient Egypt, pyramids, and yes, sometimes they even have elephants on stage. But at its heart, it's a classic, fatal love triangle, told through this unforgettable, soaring music.
Next, we're off to Spain for Bizet's Carmen. It's this fiery story of love, obsession, and revenge, and it is packed with some of the most famous and exciting tunes in all of opera. This is the absolute definition of high-temperature music and drama, just pure, thrilling energy from beginning to end.
But of all the game changers, there is one that just stands alone. There is truly a before and an after this single piece of music, and that opera is
Richard Wagner's Tristan and Isolde.
Okay, so what Wagner did was take this story of forbidden, all-consuming love and express it through these revolutionary harmonies that just kept delaying the resolution. It creates this sense of constant, unending tension that literally no one had ever heard before. It left audiences breathless. This thing didn't just tell a story, it totally changed the language of music itself.
Whew! Okay, after all that high drama and musical revolution, our final stop is a beautiful, nostalgic look back, a work of just incredible warmth and richness.
Richard Strauss's Der Rosenkavalier is a stunningly beautiful romantic comedy set in 18th century Vienna. But underneath all the glittering waltzes and the witty dialogue, there's this really deep, bittersweet feeling of time passing and worlds changing. The music is just lush, expressive, and full of nostalgia for an era that's already gone. It's the perfect, warm, unforgettable way to end our tour.
So after all that, where do you even start? Well, think of this as your opera tasting menu. If you're into tragic romance, definitely try Puccini's La Bohème. If you want epic spectacle, it has to be Verdi's Aida. For clever comedy, Mozart's The Marriage of Figaro is perfect. And if you're feeling bold and you're ready for a revolutionary drama that will change how you think about music, you have to dive into Wagner's Tristan and Isolde.
So from heartbreaking tragedies and clever comedies to supernatural thrillers and epic game changers, opera pretty much has it all. The only question left is, which of these incredible stories are you going to hear first?